game for you.
Yeah, sure. Send it over and I'll check it out. Yeah.
Go ahead. Check it out.
Sure. Them some short-ass skirts. Make them shorter. Oh, how cute! Jiggity jiggin' away we go. This game is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Individuals suffering from anxiety or depression may not have a safe experience. That might be me. Yeah, okay, things get dark, sure. Whatever. Look, Dev, I appreciate your concern, but I've been around the internet quite a while, and I've seen things that the unsea juice does not erase. Nothing you put in a dating sim will manage. I am really, really impressed with this game, to the point where I don't have any major complaints. I know, it's a shocker for me, but I can't think of any real ones. Sure, a few tiny ones throughout the review, but I have to say up front, the disclaimer that I laughed off in my little intro, no, take that very seriously. I am a hardened veteran of the internet. The two young ladies with their chalice, meh, I've seen worse. Blue waffles? Unpleasant, but I've seen way worse. The full video version of the end screen of Hong Kong 97? I've watched it while eating breakfast. Unless you're on, like, a blowfly girl level, you're not phasing me. Or so I thought. This game was impactful enough to actually affect my mental state and my reactions to things for almost a week after playing it. Hearing cute things kicked me with instant paranoia, and my mental health was definitely affected on some levels. When the game says to be careful, do not ignore it. Do not just assume you're hard enough to be fine. You will not be fine. If you still want to experience something unique, deep, and that will do that to you like a true horror game fan, then go experience things before I spoil them. Game's free, after all. You don't want to experience that, but want to see what it's hiding or have played it for yourself and are here to watch a new convert to Monica? Let's write some poetry. Oh, if College Otter could hear me, he'd punch me in the jaw for saying that. Doki Doki Literature Club is a completely free computer game developed in late 2017 by Dan Salvato. When I went into the research phase for this video, I had really expected to see writing credits, a writing degree, a long and deep history of writing fan fiction, something. Instead, I found a fairly well-known Smash Brothers mod creator. What? Despite that, I have to say that this little game has deeply impressed me with its writing. It's not bad. Not bad. For somebody who was talking about how she's so stuck up in style over substance, definitely has some of that going on. A lot of that going on. Why is bathing its own line? And the "it must be this one" line really doesn't belong at all. It's an interesting concept, it just doesn't feel fully thought through. God, after the first one, I was like, yes, I'm getting ready to pull out my English degree. Yes. It's this. The depressing part is it's not actually that bad of a poem. I just wasn't ready for it. It's not actually that bad. There's possibly more elegant ways to go about the concept and themes. But in a sense, the bluntness and childlike nature to it pulls you down the poem like, yeah. These are all obvious statements, and then she hits you with, like, what's actually sort of an internal thought out of nowhere, and that makes it a more functional poem. Like, that's what allows it to function as a poem. I just wasn't ready for that after the last poem was so esoteric and focused on imagery and emotion. Okay. So, objectively speaking, this is the first poem that I would actually call bad. It's not that bad. We would say that it needs a deep revision draft, where it clearly has a concept that's being gone for, but it fights too much with the word choice being used and with the pacing to properly convey that message. I would possibly suggest reforming it and trying to do a deep revision draft to cut it down to about half its current length. Get its point across in a much more quick and concise concept, instead of peppering in unnecessary analogies that don't add or subtract anything. In fact, they probably do subtract something rather than adding because they distract the reader away from the intended purpose. Like I said, it clearly has a goal, but this is easily the weakest so far. If it wasn't for you, I could sleep forever, but I'm not mad. I want breakfast. Alright, I take it back. This is the worst poem. Okay, how to hand this actual good literary criticism? Okay, the personification of the sun comes off decently. The line in particular, kissing my forehead to help me out of bed, is... You don't even need to critique that one, it's notoriously bad. See, I don't know anything about the series, but, like, it shows some level of competence. Kissing my forehead to help me out of bed is a decent line. In a better poem, the line, "Are you asking me to come out and play," could be repurposed and used again. As, like, a line that would otherwise provide contrast, but it's, wow. Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. That'd be a scrap poem that you would rip apart for pieces for a better concept. Not just in the poems, either. The writing for all of the characters is very well done, writing that very narrow line between anime tropes, but being deeply and well-writtenly relatable. I think that everyone that I've watched after the fact play the game, as well as myself, have all had moments where they've reacted to things in character, where characters have said something, and then their character responded the same way. Or even if their character didn't, where all the people watching and playing reacted the same way. That's really impressive when you're able to draw out a visceral reaction like that. But there's a deeper element to the writing. Remember, things are dark, things are disturbing. I found an incredible quote on a Kotaku interview with the creator where he said, "I'm really inspired by experiences that are surreal or unsettling, or things that kind of get under your skin. Things that are scary because they make you uncomfortable, not because they shove scary looking things in your face." There is a lot of discomfort to be found in DDLC, and it is all very, very well implemented and written. A lot of the small red flags that would denote such issues as depression, suicidal thoughts, cutting, home abuse, and so forth are written incredibly realistically, not immediately being thrown into your face, but being given as hints you might actually see in your real-life friends around you. Of course things get more obvious later in the game, but that has its own reasons that keep things just as deeply unsettling. You are a high school student whose childhood friend has convinced and guilted them into joining the literature club she attends. The club is made up of said friend, Noseless, the tiny adorable tsundere, Sun, the principal, Bo-chan, and the quiet shy nerdy girl who secretly has a morbid streak, Yuri. Can you tell who's best girl? Thinking of that Bo-chan statement, shame on you, Dan, for seriously giving Alex permission to put your incredible and fully realized characters into his dumpster fire full of gasoline and spoiled milk. In 2018, no less, when it was already deeply apparent what a worthless train wreck of an excuse for a person he was, let alone the game. For someone who seems able to read people so well to create this world and characters, you really dropped the ball right into Pennywise's storm drain there. The game has a relatively simple progression of going to the club, hanging out and talking with the girls. Sometimes you'll be able to make a decision, but most of your interaction will be in the poem writing minigame. Depending on what words you choose, different girls will love your poem. This feels a lot more impactful than it really is in terms of the story and code, but it's a nice touch that makes you feel more like you're participating in what is, at its core, a visual novel. You make some friends, read some poems that get increasingly worrying as the girls open up, help out with the school event weekend, and get more and more worried about your depressed best friend. And then the game throws a choice at you. I won't say what the choice is, but if you've played the game, you know exactly what choice I'm talking about. Everything in the game grinds to a halt, and your brain is melting with the question. And some people, of course, will always respond with, "It's just a game, don't get so upset about it." To which I respond, Snape kills Dumbledore, Dobby Guy's trying to save Harry. Snape was never redeemed, oh, and by the way, Fred Weasley dies brutally too. What's the matter? Don't get so upset by that kind of stuff, it's just a book. The implication of that statement comes with the suggestion that video games cannot create as real of characters as movies or books. Not only is that blatantly untrue, but it's doubly stupid. If anything, video games have the potential to create stronger characters than any book or movie because you discover the character's likes, dislikes, interests, insecurities, their personality, and their loves yourself through your actions, through your interactions, instead of passively reading or watching them, which makes decisions like these hurt even more. The choice is especially incredible because of its pacing. The creator knew exactly how to shift tone so that something dark and worrying could happen, then you would stop worrying about it. Then the worry would return, but even stronger and with guilt that you'd forgotten somewhat about it. And that would all be set aside with some adorable writing and new images showing a growing relationship between you and whichever girl you were dating, to the point where once again, you've forgotten all about what you were worried about. And then out of nowhere, everything explodes all at once. It's never given another chance to fully calm down, the tension just rising and rising like a shepherd's tone of anxiety and dread until the dev just leans in and grabs your heart. The climax of this loop hurts. It hurts worse than any death in any book I've ever read, and I'm a baby that stopped reading Peter and the Starcatchers because of a death. I'm a baby who still hasn't forgiven A Bridge to Terabithia for what it did. And then the pacing didn't stop. I read into the game's very blatant suggestion I could change the story. It's a game, I just did something wrong. I'll go back, I'll try again, I can load my save, and then it deletes my save and starts all over, but she's gone. Completely gone, and I'm just confused. Now the game does drag here a fair amount. See, the week is started over just without one character, so all the dialogue that didn't involve her still doesn't involve her. And even some dialogue that used to involve her but didn't specifically call her out just is the same but suddenly doesn't call her out. This can be kind of boring because it's a visual novel, there's a lot to read. But every time you start to get too comfortable, something happens. Maybe it's one of the girls glitching out. Maybe it's a text displaying wrong. Maybe it's sprites being wrong. It could even be the game files actively being messed with while you're watching them. The deeper into the week you go, the more insane things get. Yuri is going from quiet but passionate to obsessed and violent. Sun has gone from obnoxious little brat to even more obnoxious little brat. Yeah, really not a big difference with her. Sure, I didn't get her big scare, but when I watched an awesome YouTuber get said scare, she only really changes in those brief moments and is a bit more clingy and open about her abusive home. She herself isn't very different. Meanwhile, Bo-chan is Bo-chan. She's the basic bitch of the group, always has been, always will be. Once again, things constantly ramp out of control until a second girl confesses to you just before the weekend, and I have no idea. In possibly the weakest piece of writing, whether you reject or accept her confession of love, she dies. What? The entire weekend with the two of you was her entire idea, her entire goal. Why? I get she's being messed with to make what's wrong with her boil over, but it just doesn't make sense. There are two main suggestions online. The main one seems to be that being excited made her commit self-harm when everything was being manipulated, so your acceptance of her confession made the new level of self-harm be unalivedness. Which makes no sense. That's not how self-harm works. Unlike depression and suicidal tendencies, a cutter will not graduate to playing knifey ribs, even if their issues are being made infinitely worse. Maybe, say, cutting with a saw instead of a knife so that it drags across the skin and causes more damage, or maybe cutting deeper so you see the bone, but it doesn't jump from cutting to suicide like that. The other suggestion is that the person controlling everything made her do it, to get her out of the picture, and to punish you. I guess this is a possibility, but it's so far at odds with the first death. The first felt real. It felt incredibly intense because of that realness. It's hard not to laugh out of complete surprise and confusion at the second death. But once again, the creator knew this. So instead of moving on like with the first death, you end up with a still image with broken, glitched text, and the text keeps going. And it keeps going. And at first you're still laughing. But then the laughter stops as the confusion sets in. And the text keeps going, and you notice there's a new game file just labeled "Have a Good Weekend." You start hammering on the advance key, but the text keeps going with the still background. You press skip and the color shifts to red, then to blue. The body is subtly becoming more gaunt, all the blood drained out as you're trapped by the game, just staring into its eyes. The sun comes back up, then sets several more times as the reality sets in and haunts you.
Captain? We are standing in a room with a dead guy!
Through this, the same level of impact is created in the second death, and it's time to move on to the next loop. Hi. Bo-chan is sentient. She is a virus. She's been deleting everyone this entire time and manipulating their issues to be far worse, trying to make you go for her instead of the others. The game didn't work that way though, so she kept having to fight harder and harder to get your attention. Not your characters, your attention. You, sitting behind your computer screen. This is incredible. Right up until she blatantly explains to you how to get to the game folder and all but says, "Hey, delete my file to deal with the game." I would have so much preferred if you had let us recognize the hints in the debug menu that kept appearing and the glitch screen behind the first death. Yes, some people would have gotten left behind, but they would have had their minds blown even more once they realized, instead of Bo-chan just explaining what to do, then explaining to you not to do it. There's still really interesting writing in this part too, and some effective scares. The game recognized that I was streaming on OBS and skipped the scare that would read my computer's name. It wouldn't have mattered much because my computer name is Otter too. You cannot escape the otterness. But I then skipped another scare by deleting her too early. She has a unique scare where if you are recording, game is absolutely full of small touches like that. Things that you can't explain that might have happened for you and no one else who played the game that you know. So you start second guessing yourself. It makes it even more effective so that you'll keep remembering it long after you've played the game. When you delete Monica, the game even manages to make you feel guilty about it. Not very guilty, because you can't forget what she did to your friends, but for some people, they really do feel guilty about it. The others weren't sentient, they were well-written game code. Monica, ostensibly, is. That's where things became more popular. Monica. There are genuinely those out there who have their game permanently in this state. They forever have the game in the cycle where it's just them, Monica, the room, and if they load it up to talk to her from time to time instead of leading her and moving forwards. But if, like me, Yuri remains best girl, and you delete her, Monica admits what she did was wrong and just wants you and the literature club to be happy. She replaces all of her friends but leaves herself out. The game starts over once more and everything is happy and perfect. Too happy and perfect. All things cute and happy must now come to a brutal end in your mind, and so does the game, as another girl rises to sentience, and the still somehow present Bochan stops her and deletes everything. You have now finished DDLC. Congratulations. You are left with a literally non-functional game. There are 2 other secret endings. In one, if you abuse save states to do every possible decision and unlock every possible picture, then Noseless realizes everything that Monica had becomes just as sentient, but instead of becoming evil and trying to control you like she starts to in the normal ending, she recognizes what needs to be done and deletes the whole entire game on her own, instead of Monica doing it. This doesn't really change anything, it just gets rid of that section. The other secret ending is, what if you download the game fresh and delete Monica right from the outset? Well, if you do that, the game knows what you've done, Noseless instantly becomes sentient, can't handle the realization, and this is now your game. Hooray! The game will hit you right in the emotional gut at every turn, at every chance. It manages to be genuinely funny and well written, with excellent characters that it still calls out for being just that, characters. It takes all of those perfectly set up and difficult choices, scares, and emotions, and then delivers an even bigger gut punch by reminding you that, hey, these people I called out earlier are right. It is just a game. Why do you care so much? Just like the poems themselves, it makes you think about what you feel and why. This might not have been the most traditionally enjoyable experience, but I'm so glad I did experience it. I was really excited to see what Team Salvato was working on next, but their Twitter, while active, is nothing but retweets of DDLC fan art. It doesn't look like they're working on anything new yet, but I am definitely going to have to keep an eye out for anything that these guys work on from here on out.
And right back to another very enjoyable game. Well, don't worry, the next game up, also very enjoyable. We're on another good game streak. And if you haven't checked out the game, despite me telling you to, go give it a check out, and while you're at it, maybe share this video around, see if we can actually expand our own reach. But until next time, remember, life is always another game waiting to be discovered.